Both types of sports with Schoode Tor. Football discussion on the internet.
Oh boy. And now, of course, begins the more interesting of the two types of sports we discuss on this show. And that would be the NFL off-season. Welcome to both types of sports. I am the Schoode Tor. There is a Gigantor. It seems like you're a little down on the dumps today, Tor.
I would just like a move to be made, but even if a move did get made, I'm not sure I'd be able to check the world's biggest public news site for any updates, given that Twitter was down today throughout most of the big bang of free agency. So it's been a bit of a mess, I'd say, for NFL free agency day one.
I think Elon said it was a massive cyber attack, and it just why couldn't it happen the day after the Oscars or
any other day?
Yeah, the Academy Awards. That was unfortunate. It could be worse, Tor. You could be the Dallas Cowboys, where 2 years in a row you're spanking it with a thumb up your ass. Only this time you're watching the Washington Commanders, and look, whether or not you like their moves or not, but you're watching them get the fuck after it, as they have been since bringing Deebo Samuel in. I want to talk about Laremy Tunsil. There's some pretty good information on him and how good he has been, which is incredible because if you think about the Houston Texans, one of the narratives is just how often C.J. Stroud gets the shit kicked out of him. I believe they gave up the second most sacks in the NFL last season, but that has nothing to do with Tunsil, who I know everyone's having fun making the jokes about the bong and the gas mask and all of that. But this is our boy Warren Sharp, who's a friend of the show. Laremy Tunsil has been incredible. His rank in pressure rate allows amongst left tackles with at least 75 pass blocking snaps past years. Number 2, number 4, and number 2 again, respectively. All 3 years combined. Number 2 with 400 pass blocking snaps, 3.1%. Pretty goddamn strong, only behind Tristan Wirfs. If you want your team to be aggressive and to go out and to carpe that diem, I think if you're a Commanders fan, you're pretty happy today thus far.
It was a perfect addition. Shore up the left side, shore up the blind side. I was flabbergasted seeing this come down the pike after what Washington I had already graded as a pretty good offseason so far. The Deebo edition, the Kinlaw edition, bringing back Wagner. They could have not brought back Tunsil, and I still would have loved their moves. Bringing Tunsil in, uber aggressive and very needed. I love it. It's just a smart football thing to do, is to get a phenomenal offensive tackle for your young quarterback. Let him worry about one less thing, and let the offensive line just continue to blossom. They saw what Philly did, and I think they saw the separation point between the two teams in the NFC Championship game and how good Philly's offensive line was. And they said, if we want to compete and maybe one day get home field advantage with our superstar quarterback, we need to have an offensive line that can equal or at least rival Philadelphia's. And getting Tunsil is a big step towards that.
Jaden Daniels was sacked 47 times last year. Now, he runs the ball a lot. It's going to happen. He holds on to the ball trying to make plays. That's the 6th highest number in the NFL. You have to assume that number comes down now. And one of their primary concerns is not just adding weapons, but it's also keeping that guy healthy. And that's your primary concern. That's what this does. I was surprised, Tor, with the lack of depth in the wide receiver room, that they let Dyami Brown go for what I thought was a pretty affordable deal to the Jacksonville Jaguars, where he will go off into offensive purgatory with the Duval weirdo and the lurch with the nose that goes up to the middle of his scalp. I thought that guy stepped up in the right time in the postseason. Like, that's what, love or hate Carolina, they're paying their guys. It's like you want to reward your own. We're seeing the Buffalo Bills go out of their way to reward those guys. It's a little different with Dyami Brown, but I don't know. I thought he made some steps. That's a guy you drafted and cultivated. There's a little chemistry there. I was kind of hoping they'd keep him in the wide receiver room.
It felt like the best season he's had since Washington. It was his chemistry with Jaden Daniels. Like he felt he was a safety blanket for him, where even if some of the passes towards Brown were deep shots, it was, I can at least go to Diami, try to throw it deep and make something happen. So getting rid of him questionable. At least seeing that he had some upwards momentum, and maybe Washington said that's as good as he's going to get. We've been around him for 3 years. He's not getting any better. He just had the best season of his career. Maybe we can get the most value, but it's not that. It was just re-signing, and his career year came at a bad time for re-signing with Washington. But if you can go get paid in Jacksonville and catch 25 passes for 500 yards, you'll do that. You won't exceed it in Jacksonville, but you can go do that.
Why not? They take care of your money. That's enough for you to live on for a good long while. So
Sure.
I don't fault him for taking it, but we've seen other wide receivers take a similar deal from that franchise in the past, and we know how that has worked out in the past. Connor Hughes is reporting that the Titans are among the teams interested in quarterback Russell Wilson. We can make all the jokes. The quarterbacking carousel is wild, and it is not unfolded the way that I thought that it would. I think, and look, we can go back and forth about Sam Darnold Tor. That's probably the biggest move of this entire offseason is where Sam Darnold was going to go. And then after he went, although the other pieces kind of fall into place, you got it was it a 3rd round pick for Geno? I believe that it was. You got younger at the position. And technically you saved money. Like Geno wanted more money than Sam Darnold actually got. So I just on paper, I know that I'm a Geno guy too, and I think he was underappreciated. I'm excited for him to get reunited with Pete Carroll. I'm excited to see what that looks like going to the best young tight end in the game. Like I hope they are able to have rekindle some of that magic that they had in Seattle. But on paper, I think what Seattle did, and I'm not talking about losing Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, but on paper, the quarterback position, how does that not viewed as an upgrade by everyone?
It should be viewed as an upgrade, but I'm taking it with a very large grain of salt that Minnesota's infrastructure and offense is way more catered towards Sam Darnold's success based on the pattern of Sam Darnold's success that I've seen at his locations, given he was in Minnesota for 1 year. It was his career best year. And to try to replicate that in Seattle with not Justin Jefferson and with Jackson Smith and Jigba and who's the number 2 wide receiver, Jacob Bobo, it's not as – I don't have the same amount of confidence in Seattle, I guess, in wins or offensive potency as I would have if Darnold had stayed in Minnesota. So my grain of salt comes with that. That's where it's coming with for me.
He's back with Clint Kubiak, and I get it. No DK, no Tyler Lockett, but they do have JSN, Kenneth Walker III, Zach Charbonnet. They can run the football. I assume they're going to want to run the football, and I assume they're not done. Everyone's saying they're going to want to bring in a speedster, or whether that's somebody off the scrap heap like Valdez Scantling. I don't know who it is. Maybe you look to the draft, but you're right. There's no denying Jordan Addison on one side, the greatest wide receiver in the game on the other, all-pro tight end. Their running game wasn't all that impressive. They lost their left tackle. I mean, they didn't get Hawkinson back till halfway through the season. I know Jones just got re-signed there, which is good for him. But I don't know. I like the move, and I see your little tagline there. I agree with you. I think Los Angeles I was questioning when they were doing that dance with the devil, when Sean McVay basically went to what I think is the top 5 quarterback in this league and say, go on out and see what some other team will give you. Go on out and see if you can get $55 million a year. Well, what if they say, yes, we will give you $55 million a year and we will send a first and a third back to the Rams? That fucking happened. Like, they got as close to the edge of this thing not working as they possibly could. And yet it paid off. And then Devontae Adams, I think, signing for a very reasonable amount of money. He clearly showed he still had it at the end of the year, not even waiting to see where Aaron Rodgers signed up. How did they come off looking even stronger after taking such a risk? That's pretty wild, man.
It's an absolute masterclass from the LA Rams this offseason. Re-signing your great quarterback in Matthew Stafford, that's 1A. You re-sign probably one of the best backups in the league in Jimmy Garoppolo. Bring him back. What happens if Stafford goes down? Well, we got someone that's competent and not 40. They bring in Devontae Adams. I still think he's got juice in the tank. I saw at the end of the Jets season this past year that he did have gas in the tank. He was making great catches. His best stats of the year came in that ending stretch. Bring back Tutu Atwell. Bit of a nothing burger to me, but he's worked in that system. I think if Tutu Atwell went somewhere else, we'd forget about him. But because he's on the Rams, he's going to have like 4 huge touchdowns at critical points this year. And they bring in Poona Ford, who is an absolute menace on the interior defensive line. So that shores up their. So they fix their. They have their quarterback solved. They have wide receivers solved. For the most part, right now they could keep adding. They shored up their run defense. Was probably the weakest part of their defense last year. It's just a phenomenal way to approach the offseason. And opposed to doing nothing, they made right moves, they made competent moves, and I think they made moves that were not overly costly to the cap as well.
Couple of things too is they were already fairly loaded with young talent on the defensive side of the football, so to be able to make that unit even stronger, so impressive. And so I think where it comes from is confidence. Like, we've been there before, we talked about it. Like, they've had to rebuild a couple of times since Sean McVay is there. We even had that weird couple of weeks where they're talking about Sean McVay retiring and leaving football. That feels like a distant memory. But I think when you know that everyone knows that your shit don't stink, that you're competent and I can go there and I can find success. It's why Daniel Jones, I hate doing these shows. I fucking hate it, because as soon as we post this show, all of this news is going to break and everything we say is already going to be dated. But if Daniel Jones was smart, he would sign a 2-year deal with the Minnesota Vikings and just go there and compete and say, I'm going to try to become the starter and keep JJ on the bench for another year. Even if he's got to beat the odds, he could get hurt again. There could be a setback, because KOC can make you look good. And McVay is the gold standard there. The tree goes from him. The roots go from him. And I think that's the way they approach free agency. It's just like, fuck you. I know what I got. All that meme. What is it? I know what I got is what it's worth, or I can never get the phrasing of that right. This is somewhat interesting. This just happened. The Browns are acquiring Kenny Pickett from the Philadelphia Eagles in exchange for Dorian Thompson-Robinson and a 5th-round pick, originally from the Lions. Ian Rappaport is reporting. And it's interesting, Tor, because the Browns, I wanted to talk about Myles Garrett today, but that feels like it was 1,000 years ago at this point. But in keeping Myles Garrett, this is not going to be a teardown. I thought ultimately it would be, and they need a competent, is he going to be the backup? Like, are they still looking to draft Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders? They want him to go in there and try to start 16 games. He looked pretty good for the Philadelphia Eagles when he was in there when Jalen was hurt. And you also he's a former 1st-round pick. So I don't know. I that was not a direction I thought they were headed in when they're trying desperately to patch together the quarterback position so they can get that albatross of a contract off the books.
I think Cleveland's still going to try to go like the Kirk route, veteran quarterback route, and draft Shadur Sanders or whoever they can draft at the top.
Kirk and draft the guy in the 1st round?
Possibly. I don't think Kenny Pickett is the solution, and if he is their solution, then the Browns really deserve to be the worst team in the NFL. Well, I would shift it.
Not a solution, but you have a good coach, and you know your hams. Everybody knows you're hamstrung by this quarterbacking deal. I'm surprised they're not going the Flacco route. To be honest with you, he's available. He's popular. He's going to be inexpensive. Like, that's a guy you could plug right in. He'd sell a couple of tickets right from the jump. People have fond memories of it. He knows the system. So yeah, I mean, maybe this is just for a backup, but this to me looks more like we're going to have 2 or 3 guys, including a rookie, to compete for a starting position next year.
I think, yeah, they're going to be a disaster. We had a taste of what could happen if Cleveland was good and if they were competitive, and it was great. It was awesome. Nobody in the AFC North was safe. Every game meant something. Cleveland was scrappy and in it, and now I'm looking at Cleveland in the rearview mirror as I look at other more competent franchises that are deciding to enter the year 2025 with a good foot. They just can't get out from underneath themselves, and I think seeing all these other teams improve, it's going to continuously hurt the Browns in the public perception, as I continue to believe more and more that the Deshaun Watson signing will be remembered as maybe the worst free agent signing acquisition contract ever thrown out. And I know people might think it's recency bias, but there's been a lot of players that have been traded and moved for big contracts. Nothing has been so detrimental to a team than Deshaun Watson's massive contract for the Browns, especially for little return.
Well, not even, I mean, it's, of course, you're correct, $230 million fully guaranteed back in 2022, but the 3 first-round draft picks, Tor. I mean, we've never seen anything like it. And then, look, people are shitting on Myles Garrett because he said, I can't win here. I just went out. There's no conversation to be had. You look at $122 million guaranteed, the most ever for a non-quarterback in this league. And you turn that down as a responsible adult, as a homeowner, as a taxpayer, as a father, whatever his situation is, you can't do it. You can't do it. You can't look that amount of money in the eye and say, nah, I'm going to say no to that, because you're never going to get another bite at that apple. He's going to be 30 years old, and he can get sacks in Cleveland. He can still dominate in Cleveland, and he knows everybody there. So I'm not as incensed as other people seem to be that he took the money and kind of went back on his word, because I almost view that as the most responsible thing. As silly as it seems to say it's responsible to say with the Browns, it's irresponsible to turn down life-altering, generational capital that way.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's been a pebble in my shoe this entire process, is that Myles Garrett went back. Well, no, he's staying with the team that drafted him. He's staying with the team. He's already a legend of the team in some sense, in some form, one of the best pass rushers that they've had ever in that uniform. So Myles Garrett going back on his word. What did everyone... He got an offer to stay where he is, not have to move, not have to uproot his life. It's a win for Myles Garrett. I saw the same thing with Geno Smith. Geno Smith wants to go to a contender. These dudes have agents. You know, they can make their wants, but their wants aren't always going to be met by other teams and the market. Similarly, DK Metcalf. I want to go to a contender. I want to go play somewhere warm with a quarterback as quarterback stability. He ended up in Pittsburgh. You'd say Pittsburgh doesn't have all of that, but his agent put him there. His agent sent him to Pittsburgh. That was the best offer. You think DK Metcalf wasn't looking over these options and saying, maybe there was a team, maybe like New Orleans, hypothetically, it was offering him some type of deal or trade offer. It could have been much less money. It could have been a worse situation, a worse deal. So even if all of his public statements and needs weren't met necessarily, it doesn't mean that they're not happy. It doesn't mean that they made the wrong decision. That has been one of the weird irritants I've seen, is that these players went back on their word. They said what they wanted. You know, if they really wanted it or wanted to stick to it, they'd be holding out, or they'd just be doing,
How many times do organizations go back on their word or fire a coach, and then you're supposed to be there for life? And that's why I saw who's the crazy fuck that used to do the show with Boomer Esiason that got canceled, and then now he has 15 shows. It was Craig Carton. He was losing his mind on whatever show he's on about the Bills giving their quarterback money when they had 4 years left on the contract. And it's like, well, but that's, first of all, I don't think you can ever, if you've got a quarterback that can single-handedly win you a division every single year, I think you feel perfectly okay giving him additional monies. But where the resentment builds for these guys, Tor, is when they don't feel like they're being compensated the way their peers are, when they know they're contributing more. Everybody does. T. Higgins, how do you think T. Higgins feels looking at DK Metcalf and saying DK Metcalf wants a trade? It happens instantly. He's with a playoff contender and gets a giant bag. When I would say that DK Metcalf has as many question marks, if not more, than T. Higgins does at this point. That's why I hate the fucking draft. I hate these teams that get stuck with these cheap ass, and the Bengals are the worst of the lot. They won't trade you. They won't pay you. They want a giant bag of picks every time they trade a guy. It's unfair for anybody that has to go to. And I thought of T. Higgins with DK Metcalf. Basically said I want out, and then was immediately granted it and went off to a place he wanted and got a giant bag.
Yeah, T. Higgins is probably feeling like a big jerk. Like, wow, what? I'm sitting here in Cincinnati, awesome, and now I get to play this dude that's making a bunch of money. You got to go up against him twice a year, watch him punch my poor cornerbacks in the head, and the
dick in the head.
The guy across from him also punching a cornerback in the dick in the head. That's going to be at least a fun saga to watch. At least Pittsburgh's trying to make it entertaining. Cincinnati is cheap and boring. Worst combination you can be.
Is there a world where we see Rodgers, Pickens, and DK Metcalf in the same locker room?
Rooting for it now. Immediately.
I want it so
Give
bad.
me the chaos. Just you know what? Pittsburgh, this could be their way to get out of Tomlin. If they're officially sick of him, they could say, we're going to uproot you. I love that you never, had a losing season. The spoiled crybaby Steelers fans, if they run Tomlin out with his circus that they're bringing in here, and just all the unsportsmanlike penalties, all the fighting, and they say, oh, well, Tomlin's first losing season, he's cut. it's their fault. It's management's fault, and I'm going to remember this offseason and what they did to our boy, who just brings that team, no matter who's on it, to the playoffs. I understand it's tough watching your team lose in the playoffs every year. It feels like it's stale. You still have a shot. You're still in the mix.
I just think that Rodgers, we're down to, so the Titans are somewhere jerking off into the ceiling fan. I thought they were one of these teams that needed a quarterback, but they're not mentioned at all. They're not even relevant. So it's the Giants and the Steelers, as we're recording this show, that need a quarterback. We know the Giants want Aaron Rodgers. We are assuming that the Steelers are interested because it's between him and Russell Wilson. I think Cam Hayward being in that locker room, Mike Tomlin clearly being in that locker room, TJ Watt, I think the best environment for Rodgers is Pittsburgh. Small town, blue-collar town. The coach is bigger than all of them. There's legends inside of there. It's hard-nosed. It's just going to be less opportunity for weirdness in Pittsburgh as opposed to staying in New York, in New Jersey, with, at worst, the second most dysfunctional organization that this sport has to offer. So, I mean, I know money. I just defended Myles Garrett for taking money to stay in fucking Cleveland. But if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm doing everything I can to just use what the Giants are offering me to try to get a few more guarantees out of Pittsburgh.
He's so confusing this cycle because I think he doesn't want to move. So he's just trying to push that off onto the Giants. I thought that Nashville was an option for him because he owns a house down there or owns a property down there. Thought that was a possibility. Going to Pittsburgh, it remains to be the best destination for a quarterback. I think they did make Russell Wilson look better last year. I think they made Justin Fields look better last year. It's a good destination. It's 1,000 times better than New York to go play in and possibly win. Rodgers, I don't think took being on the Jets very seriously. I don't think he took their opponents seriously. I don't think he liked it. Maybe if he gets put in Pittsburgh, he starts meeting the moment when he's facing the Ravens twice a year, facing the Bengals twice a year, getting punched in the mouth. Like it would be good, but that is an organization that has taken themselves very seriously. It's one of the blue chip franchises in NFL history. So if you want to bring that psychopath in there, you got to know he's going to be pretty mundane with all the eccentricities on the outside of things.
Eccentricities, look at you. Breaking, it looks like that the Eagles are going to go to the White House and meet with President Trump. That was something that people loved screaming about on Twitter for a while. And Charvarius Ward headed to Indianapolis per Tom Pelissero, 3-year deal, $60 million. He has 30 passes defended since 2023, tied for second most in the NFL. What are the Colts doing? Like, do the Colts know who they are? I mean, is Shane Steichen the guy they think they're going to lead them to the championship? Aren't they still in an experiment at quarterback? Like, here's what I'll give them credit for, Tor, especially with the Texans head-scratchingly getting rid of their best offensive lineman when they can't protect their Hall of Fame caliber quarterback at all. If you're in the AFC South and you're not thinking, let's fucking go, let's try to wrestle this thing and hump it into submission because all these teams suck. Like, if that's the Colts mindset, then God bless you. That should be your mindset looking at that. Other than that, I mean, I can't think of a team, Tor, maybe the Giants, some of the worser teams, but a team with less of an identity to me right now than the Indianapolis Colts.
I'm trying to think back at some Colts moments from last year. The first one coming to mind is Anthony Richardson, quarterback, big week 1 deep pass, and then I think of Anthony Richardson subbing himself out of a game. Everything else is blank. And that's pretty telling for a team where you got a bunch of good players. Zaire Franklin's a really good linebacker. You got decent offensive linemen. Jonathan Taylor has been a very confusing player to determine what he's all about in the NFL, but the talented running back is there. All I can think about is that quarterback issue and how they're going to resolve it. I'm not sure how. I don't know. I don't know if I'll watch some of the Colts next year, but they are such an afterthought in the NFL. They just have not caught up to anything. And they've had good players. Alec Pierce is a good wide receiver. Michael Pittman is a good wide receiver. I think they're a team that's capable of maximizing their potential, but they don't make good moves. And if they do, it goes for naught because they don't win enough games to actually make it matter. Battling for third or second place in the AFC South is not a good enough division where you're getting 2 in anyways, so you're just going to be on the outs with 8 wins year in, year out. They're in a nasty cycle.
I have some thoughts on Dan Moore getting treated like Anthony Munoz and Tony Baselli by the Titans. I'll get to that in just a couple.
Sure.
Get to that in just a couple of moments. I just want to gal that the chat is weak as shit. Let's go ahead and like the stream. Also, we accept super chats. $1.99 is all it takes to get you on the screen. If you have a question, comment, or query, thank you for listening and tuning in live. We do have a podcast on Spotify and iTunes. It is free. Subscribe to that. Leave us a 5-star review. We greatly appreciate it. Mike Vrabel going on his run in New England. By the way, the Patriots spending like drunken fucking sailors. God bless them. Get after it, boys. Josh Dobbs, former Titans quarterback, signing a 2-year, $8 million deal with the Patriots. Of course, Landry's already there. Mike Vrabel doing Mike Vrabel things. It's heartbreaking to watch. Does this mean, Tor, that Joe Milton is a part of their plans moving forward? He of course flashed at the end of the season. I was in love with him in the preseason. Laser, rocket fucking arm, running all over the field, giant cock. I recently said I would rather, if it's I got to draft Schoode or Cam top 10 picks, I'd rather take a flyer on sending a 4th or a 5th for that guy and trying to build around him and then using that pick on an all-time player. I wonder if that means that he is available, and I wonder what the interest would be around him if Dobbs looks like he's going. Because this is a veteran, right? This isn't a guy you're trying to develop. This is a veteran quarterback to back up Drake May.
Yeah, so Vrabel's so smart, and because every year some quarterback gets hurt, and then Dobbs steps in, wins a game, keeps him afloat. He's going to lose a couple games, but bringing in a vet like Dobbs is just a smart Vrabel move. My condolences also to you. I mean, it's
abominable.
It's a beatdown. You're the most cursed person in football, to my knowledge. Talked to a lot of people. I was surrounded by a lot of fans, a lot of people that are involved in ball. You are 1-1 of most cursed. I have never seen a run. You're on an unbelievable run right now.
You don't think it was fun watching Derrick Henry run over the entire league last year for the fucking Baltimore Ravens?
I mean, to pour so much effort and energy into a product, it never rewarded you. You finally cut cord, and then I've never seen anything like it.
No.
Your trajectory.
Thank you for the pity. I do accept it. I accept your scorn, and I would have a nice big bowl of scorn flakes with all of that you're heaping upon me right now.
It's just, you know what, Milton. I was reminded of some of Milton's college performances and some of his play there. Rough. There were some rough scenes at Tennessee.
Whatever.
But I have seen him play in the NFL. I've put my eyes on that guy wearing NFL pads, wearing an NFL jersey. I'm still intrigued. I'm still interested. I want to see what happens. And if they keep him in New England, smart, savvy move by Vrabel. Let's just see, fellas. If not, somebody else is going to be quick to dial. Just take a shot at the raw product. You're not Indy drafting the raw product at round 1, pick 4. You can get him for a 7th round pick. Why not? It's at least a chance that you're taking. I don't mind it. I like it. I think if it is open, he gets signed quicker than Trey Lance does. I think he gets signed quicker than a lot of backup guys do.
Sure. I don't know. The part of this that is very interesting to me is the time in your team's maturation process, Tor, where you decide to go all in. The Patriots spending the way they are right now, they certainly didn't do that for the last administration or even the one before that. It's really not in their character. And so that's why it's kind of intriguing. The Steelers as well. The Steelers don't trade quarterbacks and give up on 1st round picks and bring in 38 to 41-year-old guys. I mean, you're seeing these teams kind of go through uncharacteristic phases, and with the cap going up and a draft, this is kind of a weak draft in a couple of different really key positions. There's a level of like nervous energy and panic around some of these moves that are being made. I just have never seen, you correct me if I'm wrong, I don't usually see guys spend $200 million in free agency and then win 12 games the next year. It's very few times I've seen that in my life.
Yeah, because if you have that much cap, that means you cut a lot of key players to get that much money. All these guys that would be contributing to wins, no longer on the team. We start from scratch. The last time I saw the Patriots spend this much was it might have been the second Trent Brown signing for them when they pulled him back from the Raiders. And they just spent a crazy amount of money in Belichick's last year, or second to last year there, didn't pan out too much, didn't muster too much. It was just too much turnover for them to handle. And there are some franchises, like Pittsburgh is a team and a franchise. They shouldn't be without a great quarterback.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel right. It feels like there's a void in football when they are without a good quarterback. We've seen the Packers avoid that somehow for so long. It's a team that it's entrenched that they're going to have a good quarterback. Atlanta is going to have good wideouts. The Baltimore is going to have some big, powerful back and a good defense. Like, there are trends with teams where they just keep up, and I think that impacts like where free agents want to go. If I'm a linebacker, yes, I want to go to Baltimore. There's a history there. There's a culture there. I can be impactful. I can be loved there because everyone remembers the faces of the past. When you start going all in on free agency like this and not addressing like one glaring issue, it does concern me because it lets me know that you have too many holes that you're trying to plug at the bottom of the boat.
But there is a fine line. Like, I like how aggressive Washington is being.
Yes.
I like that if we are ahead of where we thought we would be. We are not going to rest on our laurels. Not an F them picks mentality, but you get the gist. This is one of the more interesting moves so far of free agency. And again, apologies if you're listening to the podcast and some of these things have changed or been updated because, we're doing the show in real time. But this deal is in. The Pittsburgh Steelers offered Justin Fields $30 million for 2 years with $20 million guaranteed. The New York, New Jersey Football Jets offered Justin Fields $40 million for 2 years with $30 million guaranteed. This is interesting, Tor, because there's going to be a lot of dirt out there that are like, what's $10 million? Stay with the Steelers. Go to the fucking playoffs, you dumb shit. This kid got benched with a 4-2 record. Yeah. They said thank you, but no thank. Have you ever heard Justin Fields bitch? Have you ever seen him walk in front of a microphone and say something weird and questionable and the fuck is wrong with you like Russell Wilson does, or do an interview where he's talking about, conspiracy theories and inoculations? Like, he is the opposite of the guys that now are the contingency plan. And for him to want to go to the Jets, like, yeah, it's the Jets. He knows one of their wide receivers pretty well, I think, that's had some success in the past. And he's going to get an opportunity to start with a fairly talented team. I don't know. I think this is more about, you guys let me know what you think of me when you benched me when we were winning, so I'm going to take another $10 million because who knows how many more bites I'm going to have at this apple, and I'm going to bet on myself and go start for the Jets. This is much clearer to me than it seems to be for other people.
I'm always going to be rooting for Justin Fields, model citizen. The most drama that's been surrounding him is from former teammates of his liking him too much, therefore causing controversy on their present team when Justin Fields isn't there. So he is a guy that players want to have around him. It's the Jets. That is hideous, and I know it's the Jets. I know what they do to quarterbacks, but Zach Wilson had some weirdness with him, with the friend's mom. Like, he's always a story. Like, every Jets quarterback has a story, and they're getting rid of the King's story of Jets quarterbacking in recent memory. Go ahead, bring in a guy. Bring in a low-key guy, great athlete. He has chemistry with Garrett Wilson. The offensive line has gotten better. They've addressed that in the draft. I hope they continue to address it. They got running backs out the ass. Like, they have the bones. The Jets have always had the bones, but they never had any soul to actually carry them across the finish line into becoming a good team. Is Justin Fields that? I doubt it. But I'm going to root for it. I'll root like hell for it. Yeah. And I hope they don't cause him eternal demise in the league, because he's just gotten shafted at every single stop. Shafted by the Bears. It's being a quarterback of the Bears, similar to the Jets. Go to Pittsburgh, get railroaded by Russell Wilson. Now we're on to the Jets, historically one of the worst teams with the quarterback situation.
I know, but why can't the Jets? I mean, people take these quarterbacks that can run the football through. You can win 7, 8, 9 games, and then the ball bounces the right way, and you have one of these miraculous. I just don't understand, with the talent they have, how they can't dumb luck themselves into better situations, despite the fact, you're right, they treat quarterbacks like chattel, and they have, since Chad Pennington, for God's sake. All right, so this is Connor Hughes' update on the Aaron Rodgers situation. Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback the Giants want. They're waiting to find out if he wants them. Most league sources I touched base with believe Rodgers is headed to the Steelers, which would lead the Giants to Russell Wilson. The problem is the Titans and others are interested in Wilson too. Again, where is Joe Milton in this? I would rather take a flyer on a guy like that, please. I know what Russell Wilson is. There's other veteran quarterback. I'd rather Is Daniel Jones available? Like, there's just other guys I think that have the possibility of being more than what we've seen. Russell Wilson at best is mostly gassed out, is mostly tarnished. I just don't even know if I want to go down that road as a bridge quarterback with catchphrases and the nonsense. How do these teams find themselves here?
It's really disastrous. It's two sides of the fence here. You're either on the good side of the fence with a quarterback looking over at the rednecks bashing each other over the head with buckets and pails in their backyard, which are the quarterbackless teams. Well, I'm nice over here watering my lawn like a civilized person would. It's a direct. You're in an absolute no place to win without a quarterback in this league. I hope Titans draft Cam Ward. I hope they take him 1-1 overall, just because it's at least a direction, and it's somebody that I could at least trick myself into having some faith in year one. And maybe if he doesn't completely piss down his leg, I could dupe myself into a year two emergence evolution. But Aaron Rodgers at this point, yes, he's Aaron Rodgers, but that dude was so punched out last year. You could just see it on his face. I think that Tennessee need to go young. They need to go with just a guy out of the draft, because unless you want to just stay in that ballpark of the bottom three picks, or the top three picks rather, in the league each draft until you nail a guy. But you got to start swinging. You got to start scratching off those lottery tickets until you find someone. That's what Washington did. They won the lottery, and now they're supposedly, hopefully, set for a little bit at that position.
Yeah,
I just think you got to be in the lottery every single year. If you don't have a quarterback, you should be drafting a quarterback. Even if it's not Cam Ward, I hope they draft somebody and hope that he ends up being that type of dude in the NFL.
Just with sweat and with grind, and if you could add Abdul Carter, I mean, that's just I have so much respect for what the Eagles did toward that game against. I mean, the Chiefs are the Chiefs are the dynasty of our era, and they're made to look. There's one defining thing that can make any team look mortal, and that's four guys that can get after the passer. And if
that's
you can put that
point.
on,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's a great point. I forget that you also hold that key in your balance of possibly having an unbelievable defense.
Joe once says, "What is the Cowboys doing? Nothing." Yeah, I don't know. If you're a Cowboy, the Cowboys are going to lose a significant amount of fans this offseason. That's just the way that it is. It's already been assured. Not all the big names, but most of the big names are off. The optics of that 2 years in a row for a team that claims to be close to the Super Bowl every year. Micah Parsons has not signed a deal that dwarfs what we saw take place with Myles Garrett yet, as far as I know. So I think really, Tor, we're going to see the age of America's team. Like, this is the generation where it dies. I think we're finally going to see it.
It's been shocking, and we had Cowboys fans love melting down. I'm not going to put that past them. They've been justified for melting down for seasons now, where it has been stuck in the quicksand, investing so much in Dak. But at least you signed a long snapper, you re-signed him, you signed a safety, a cornerback, both Jags, just a guy, not much file on them, and then they re-sign one of the only impact players they have on their team, Osa Odigizua, who's a good defensive lineman. He's a good defensive tackle. I will give them that, but you're bringing him back. So at best, you are as good as you were last year.
Right.
Not good enough at all. Not even close. Hell, even if Dak was healthy, we forget. Oh, Dak got hurt. They had to throw in Cooper Rush. They were skidding with Dak. When Dallas was walking into Atlanta, Dak was starting. Dak was healthy, and he got knocked out of that game. But as tragic as Atlanta was in their skid, I was fully confident they were going to roll over them. They were a bad team that was going to miss the playoffs with a healthy quarterback that just got paid a ton of money, and they're doing nothing. It is shocking. Cowboys fans should be pissed. They should just, if they really were pissed, they'd let that money talk. But they need the attention as bad as Jerry does. They need to be in that big ostentatious stadium, just like he does, watching that video board, watching the team, buying the jerseys. I think you crushed Jerry Jones by hurting his wallet. I don't think the words hurt him anymore.
How crazy? Well, go ahead, finish up.
I don't think Cowboys fans have that in them, though. They need the attention too much.
It's just, if you're a Commanders fan, the fact that that is happening simultaneously, it almost feels like one cell sucking the life out of another, where not only do you have the most exciting young quarterback guy, was an MVP, not a rookie of the year, he was the rookie of the year, but an MVP candidate his rookie year, outdid what CJ Stroud did the year before Tor, which we never thought would happen. That guy set the bar impossibly high. And now your team's going out and you got a competent general manager and you're bringing in exciting players and you're reinforcing the offensive line. It's happening almost whatever the direct opposite of symbiosis is, as the Cowboys are doing what they do. I'd be jacking off. I'd be jacking off if I was a script block letter W fan.
That one cell could be Dan Quinn. It could just be hinging on one absolutely drastic move for Dallas, letting that guy walk because you were scared of another possible 28-3 situation. I get the concerns, but what he proved in Dallas was so far, his coaching ability in Dallas appeared to me at least to be so many light years beyond what Mike McCarthy was doing at the head position that I had to think McCarthy had some type of blackmail on Jerry Jones. Like, he had to have something on him because he was just standing there looking dumb as shit, holding the clipboard on the sidelines.
Are they better off with Brian Schottenheimer? I mean, that's the most underwhelming coaching hire of the past 20 years.
An abject disaster. They have made every single wrong move possible. When they could have signed Dak for cheap, they saved it for later for when it's more expensive. Same with CeeDee Lamb. They're going to do the same with Micah Parsons. I hope Washington gets Micah Parsons. I hope they just start bleeding the Cowboys dry just to punish them for it's insolence to the football gods, what they do.
Micah Parsons isn't over 30, so I don't think the Commanders are going to be interested in him. Joe Azer just sent a nice Venmo over. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. Very kind of you. Call Joe Azer if you want to buy or sell a home in the Northern Virginia area. And take a look at this. Verbal nod goes out to our buddy Jake from State Farm. Jake Segovia said, "Happy Monday, fellas. Love the NFL off season. Just tagged you, not me. What a bummer." But he seems to be enjoying himself a massive Modelo in the middle of the day. Mazel tov on a Monday, sir, and watching both types of sports. So thank you, Jake. Appreciate that.
I love that even seeing that on a laptop, on a tweet, on a shrunken screen, on pixels of a TV, my face is still so fat in the glare. Like, I'm basically looking at about 40 pixels next to each other, and I can still discern how fat this face is.
Oh, stop it.
I'm disgusting. I'm disgusting, Shoot.
You're being fucking ridiculous. You're too self-deprecating at this point. All right, let's pull this up real quick because Azer's talking some shit in the chat, and I know he's wrong because he's wrong about all of his sports takes. Aaron Rodgers last year on a shit Jets team that was as dysfunctional as anybody could possibly have, firing their coach in the middle of the season, offensive coordinator, 3,897 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks. His QBR was some shit. I'll give you that. And of course, he's going to be 42 years old this year, I think. But let's take a look at this log real quick, Tor. They got blowed the fuck out by Buffalo, but look at this Miami game here. 274 yards, 4 touchdowns. They take a whipping against the Rams. That's not great. Against Jacksonville, though, 289, 3 touchdowns, no picks. I wouldn't say he turned it on at the end of the season, but once Devontae Adams and him kind of meshed, and of course there were no more expectations, they were knocked out of the playoffs, he did play better. And I got to get back to, it takes a full year to recover from that injury. He's going to feel more like himself even a year older this year than he did last year. And in Pittsburgh, we know who the offensive coordinator is. They're going to run the fucking football. But when it comes time to throw it, Aaron Rodgers is known for what, Tor? His accuracy, his knowledge of the game. If there's a free play, he's going to throw a touchdown pass to the end zone 2 or 3 times a year. It makes way too much sense to me if the Steelers want him, that's where he ends up for his last hurrah. And maybe he's the difference between the 9 wins and the 11 wins and them getting a home game.
You're starting to sell me. I'm starting to lean. I want him back in Minnesota. I want him to pull the full Favre. I think that would just be a tremendous legacy. And almost it could be a tradition after we'll see what happens with Jordan Love when they stop drafting him wide receivers and offensive playmakers. I'd love to see him go to the Jets and see him go to the Vikings afterwards because it keeps on telling the same story of the NFL. It actually warms my heart Packers are always going to have a good quarterback that's great for 15 years. They're going to ship him off to some dumpster fire out in New Jersey, the Jets, who still haven't solved it, and then they're going to ship that. Then he's going to get shipped back to a supposedly competent team in Minnesota that can't stop tripling over their own shoelaces. It's spectacular what this league can do when it really sets its mind to a narrative. I hope that he can close that little loop on career.
If he does end up in Minnesota and it's full Favrean, what does that say about J.J. McCarthy? Like, is that just the injury? Is there something else that's happened that we don't know about Schoode Tor? Let's go back to they wanted to keep Darnold.
Yeah.
They wanted Darnold back. And Darnold is coming off an MVP caliber season and leading the league in passing, all this crazy shit. They wanted to keep Darnold, and they're interested in Aaron Rodgers. I just wonder if is that just about J.J. McCarthy's injury, or is there something else they're nervous about? We also know they're interested in Daniel Jones. Like, there's this is something that there's a little smoke around that issue.
I think McCarthy's soft as shit. I think that rubs off.
Don't pull any punches, young man.
No, I'm leaning into it today a little bit. I'm fired up for free agency. I am, but I don't have the confidence in him. I don't, and I hope, if he proves me wrong and the NFC North still is good and competent and fun, great. But I loved watching NFC North football this year because they had a quarterback that was slinging the rock. I think it's going to be interception machine J.J. McCarthy. And if he has 3/4 of the year that Sam Darnold has, they should be a wild card team. But I don't think he does that, and they need to keep on. They're going to keep on searching for actual options to lead them to 10 wins this year. If Kevin O'Connell was so sold on this dude, it wouldn't even be a question. Look at him. Look how fresh our golden boy is. Ready to usher him into the new age. He sat and looked. He got to see how the offense is supposed to be run by a supposedly inferior quarterback athletically, inferior quarterback in arm, and in NFL, I'd say in his journey in the NFL. So if all these things are lining up and the stars are saying give it to McCarthy and they're still not giving all the whole ball, the whole regalia to McCarthy, something is off in Denmark.
I don't know if I'm not at that point yet. You're going harder than I am, but I do find it interesting that there's not a lot of people talking about how interested they still continue to be in acquiring quarterbacks, courting quarterbacks. What about the Packers signing a guard for $1 billion? Like, are we going to have to now start drafting guards and locking them in? I mean, there's not a position group now. Cornerbacks seem to, well, no, they're getting paid too. Who's getting fucked? Saquon got paid.
Running backs are still getting the long one, I think. It's
the 49ers gave the third string tight end off the Jaguars, I think, $20 million today. This is some shit. Oh, no, Michael Sliders, our only super chat today, and he's calling you 40 pixel face tax. I mean, that is brutal right there.
You're not wrong, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. We do accept super chats, you chiseling fucks, if you're enjoying the show. Here's another one, our buddy Dorsey Art replying, little free agency talk. It looks like he's out there in the great state of Tennessee watching the show with a deer head next to his setup, which is very nice. I can see Tor's swollen face from here.
It's glaring. It's actually just like a big ball of, I don't even know what this color is on me anymore. It's pink. It's stark white. It's translucent. Just a big jellyfish sitting on the right side of the screen.
Do me a favor. Please tag us if you're watching us. For some reason, seeing it on a television, I feel like I'm John Paul Flame. I mean, it's all just coming back to me now. Thank you very much, Dorsey. Appreciate you being here, my dude.
Oh.
What?
Oh, I got the boot here.
I booted you?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, everybody. Sorry, I hate when I do that. All right, so we did Justin Fields. That was interesting. Laramie Tunsil, we talked about that. I was kind of surprised at the whole De'Ami Brown thing. Geno to Oakland is very interesting. And just real quick, look, I know Dan Moore, there's questions about his consistency, but I read he's coming back off of what a lot of people consider is his best year as a pro. He's only 26 years old. He's got a good tool set. If you don't know or care, Titans signed this guy. That's their big acquisition thus far. Of course, Skoronski last year. They drafted J.C. Latham. Actually played pretty well, Tor. I had to eat some fucking crow on that one. because they're going to move his positions around, and they fired the general manager that drafted him. So here's what I'm going to tell you. If you're some shit, people know you're some shit. So you might have to overpay. Washington had to go through this for a while. Like, people aren't going to say, oh, man, I got to get there. I'm going to take less, or I'm going to – if somebody offers me the same money, then you guys are it because you got a great coach or a great facility. It's a beautiful new – they're not there yet. So I look at that. You got to get better along the offensive line. They've heavily invested in the past 2 seasons. I don't hate that as much as everybody else does. I hate seeing Harold Landry get cut and then immediately picked up by Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots. That is what I hate, because I trust him more than I trust.
Because he knows. That's why. And that's a great point as to why we have celebrated Terry McLaurin as much as we have, because Terry knew the team was shit. Terry knew he was taking a deal. He knew that he's taking this money to stay on a bad team. These guys aren't blind to what the bad teams are, and that they're going to get less catchable passes, and that they're going to get blocked more because they're the only good edge rusher on the team that deserves attention. These guys know. So if you are bad, you're right. You have to overpay, because there's a tax that comes along with having to sacrifice your pride and dignity and ego to go out there and win 5 games in a season. It's a pretty bad feeling. It might have been NFL Film. Somebody did I don't know, not a documentary, but they spoke with a bunch of players on that Detroit team that went 0-16, and the whole year they're talking about, we didn't think it was possible. Every game we went out there and tried our hardest to win, and we were just sitting there flabbergasted when we lost that final game. To us, we're looking at it like, oh, these guys is the worst team in football. Like, of course they're going to go 0-16. Never seen anything like it. To the players, they are shocked and gutted that they went 0-16.
Yeah.
So if you have to get a guy to go to an awful team to play on some pretty bad football, some embarrassing stuff that's going to be circulating on Twitter. It's not just your local sports writer that may have seen it in the Post is going to have a write-up. Everybody's on your ass all the time now. So there should be a heightened tax on bad teams having to pay for a quality player.
That's what we're dealing with. This is my I promised I wouldn't do too much Titan stuff, because why would I? But Cody Barton, you might be familiar with him here locally. He is going to Tennessee as well. 136 tackles in 2022, 121 tackles in 2023, excuse me, and then 106 tackles with the Denver Broncos last year, 2024. He is a tackling machine, so that is the only other move of note to bring up. I did want you, Tor, while we were here. You waited the entire episode. There's no news with Kirk Cousins. We know that he no longer like to be in the faux, which is a bummer. But Grady Jarrett getting released by the Atlanta Falcons, and then hours later, signing a 3-year, $43.5 million contract with the Chicago Bears. This is a business, Tor, but Ryan Kerrigan ending up on the Philadelphia Eagles. There's just guys like Darrell Green, tape to tape as a Washington Redskin. That means something. And there's a short list of guys where you look at him, and Terry McLaurin, you just mentioned him. It means something that he stays a Redskin for his entire career, a Commander. I would have thought that for the dirty, that would have been a guy. It's like, let's make sure we take care of him. He's still capable of playing at a high rate. That's a pretty cold-blooded move there by your Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, I'm gutted. I was a little crushed when I saw that news. I was pretty certain we were keeping Grady. Why wouldn't we keep Grady? Franchise cornerstone, community cornerstone, still effective in the run and the pass game as a defensive tackle. Second year in the league, had 3 sacks in the Super Bowl against Tom Brady, and that means something to me. That it truly means something to me. He's a Ring of Honor guy, certainly in my opinion, in Atlanta. And they've done this before. Jonathan Babineau was a soldier on the interior for Atlanta for 11 years. They didn't ship him off. They just kept him on the kind of a lower defensive tackle budget, and he still produced late into his career. Grady Jarrett could have done that. I wish he had stayed in Atlanta. But if it's a greener pasture for him in Chicago, it's at least a team with some upward momentum, I would hope. I hope he's impactful in Chicago. Like I love Grady Jarrett so much that I'm not. Like I have no ill will towards him. The front office getting on my nerves. Terry Fontenot, on my nerves officially. Nailed the Michael Penix Jr. pick, though, I think. So there's some little bit of grace, but a majority of their moves I have not agreed with. Grady Jarrett meant something to this team, and I don't think Fontenot gets it. I don't think our main GM understands it, because he came from the Saints. He brought in a bunch of bad Saints players that have made some little to some impact. You don't go poaching from the Saints, especially when they're not good. They've been doing a bunch of backwards stuff that makes no sense to me. Grady Jarrett could have been a guy that's just all-time, stayed in Atlanta. You already let Matt Ryan go, and he ends his career in Indianapolis, sadly. You let Julio Jones go die in Tennessee, and then die in Tampa, and then go die in Philly.
Well, he kept it. I mean, that's if a guy's going to keep playing past when he should, there's not much you can do for that. But Grady Jarrett started 17 games for the Falcons last year.
Our best defensive lineman. He was without a doubt the team's best defensive lineman. So they're going to try to, I guess, fix the pass rush without that guy. It's going to be no pass rush in Atlanta. It's going to be maybe they stay in the teens in sacks the entire season. I think they're capable of it.
Are you worried about the Panthers? They got Bobby Brown III starting
to get worried about them.
J.C. Horn getting the big deal from them. Them resetting the market, pissing everybody else off. It's going to have to sign a cornerback in the next couple of years. But I don't know, man. I like some of these moves they're making. I like them keeping the guys that they drafted and developed into all pros. I like the quarterback. I love a fucking reclamation project. That guy bootstrapped himself after Andy Dalton put him in the cuck chair. Like, how can you not have some respect for Bryce Young? That'd be a feel-good story. I just wish they changed. I wish they changed the goddamn uniforms. I really do.
The Panthers are starting to make me worried, because I thought I was certain like when the season ended, I said, all right, J.C. Horn might be hitting the market. You know, his dad played for Arthur in Atlanta, and they were already connecting. I'm thinking, oh, it's a lock. We got our corner number 2. They lock him down. Genius move. He's a fantastic cornerback, great defensive back. They're just starting to do things right again in Carolina, which scares me, because they were so bad, and now they're doing the correct things.
This just in from Adam Schefter. Sources: Rams are planning to release Cooper Kupp. Someone's trying to hurt them by putting this out there at the start of the new league year unless a trade materializes. I mean, I said on the show last week, I think Washington should go get him. They're bringing in veterans. They want to compete now. Put him in that wide receiver room. Have him in the slot. He's probably not going to give you 15, 16 games, but he can still move the chains. He still had big completions, game-winning touchdowns for them last year. I love that move for Washington. I'm trying to think of another team. If he finds his way to Kansas City, that seems like it would make a lot of sense to me. You know that the Houston Texans, they rolled them bones on Stephon Diggs last year. They're going to need to do it again. Is Tank Dell hurt? I think he's going to miss a bunch of time for them as well. There's some nice spots that Cooper Kupp could end up if he is just released outright.
He's still got it. Every team should be inquiring about Cooper Kupp. He's just a guy that's going to add to wins on your resume at the end of the season. 710 yards, 6 touchdowns last year. I think he had a game with like 14 catches in the early part of the season before the nagging injuries. He's just going to contribute to wins when he's healthy. And if you're a top-tier team, that just elevates you to an actual like championship round contender. Like if you're in the mix, like if you went to Tampa should be the NFC South favorite. If you went to Arizona should be in the mix for the NFC West. Like he's just going to boost you up another level, having him on that team and on your offense. If you went to Vegas, I'd sit here and think, oh, well, Vegas isn't a complete dumpster fire. At every tier of the NFL, this guy can boost you up from dog shit to kind of shit, or from kind of shit to good. And if you're a great team, it puts you in real contention with all the other great teams.
How do you feel about the Josh Allen deal? By the way, someone finally topped Deshaun Watson for the most guaranteed money, which is good.
It's smart. If you have a, I hope next year Washington signs Jaden Daniels to a 15-year deal. Go ahead.
It doesn't set a precedent though, Tor. Like you got a great quarterback, another great, like a quarterback that you don't think is good as him signs for more money. So now I got to give my guy more money, or he's going to get pissed off and throw a hissy fit. There's parts about it that make me nervous.
I haven't seen Mahomes throw a hissy fit yet, and he's been on a 10-year deal, making like $45 million a year. It's fine. It's reasonable. And if you're a good enough quarterback, you can find the money in different ways. You could do the State Farm commercials. You could do the Adidas commercial. Like you can do it. Like Patrick Mahomes is, I think, making enough money not to get all up in his pockets. I think he's making enough money out of football to keep him in contention with all the other quarterbacks that are worse than him making more money than him. So I think it evens out if you are one of the faces of the sport, and not just some dickhead in Jacksonville cashing a check that the taxpayers are paying you for all that nice pool water in your stadium. So
some dickhead in Jacksonville.
I think it evens out pretty nicely for the top guys. I think it's smart by Buffalo. You have your guy. Let's just lock him in now, because if we wait, it's going to be more expensive. It just will.
Couple of plugs. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, come on over to youtube.com/Chad Duke Show. You can watch the show as we record it live. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a crawl at the bottom of the page. It is BTOS on Spotify or iTunes. Go look us up. I will be back on Thursday. The great Sean Salisbury has magnanimously agreed to join us to go over this. Hopefully we will know where Aaron Rodgers is playing. Daniel Jones is playing. Some of these more elusive. Is Najee Harris... Is anything happened with him yet? He's a free agent, right?
Not sure. I saw that the Steelers re-signed Jalen Warren, so they're at least keeping one of their premier backs that they have on the team.
They probably will be one of those teams looking to upgrade that position in the draft as well. There's some great backs in this draft. But Sal's will join me. I think we're going to be on at noon. I think noon on Thursday. If you'd like, check that out. Tor, thank you. How's your week looking, brother man?
Going pretty good. You might see me in an all-white suit at some point this week.
Have you become the new mascot for Kentucky Fried Chicken now that it's moved to Texas? Are you the Colonel?
Oh, it's not that fancy. I would never try to be the Colonel.
Not a pointy hat, right? You're not going to a Diddy party. You're not going to a Diddy party, are you?
No Diddy parties.
Who's that comedian? Who's that fat comedian with the blonde hair that's just getting raked over the...
Yeah, they're trying to... Drewski is getting caught up, and it's apparently, he denied everything, obviously.
Odell's getting caught up too, right? Everybody's getting caught up.
The Diddy party fallout has been the most fun ongoing saga to watch, just because, obviously, I'll never in my life come close to a Diddy party. So seeing it all crumble is a little bit fun.
Can you imagine throwing parties so debaucherous you can ruin lives? I mean, Jesus Christ.
He's maybe one of the greatest,
life ruiners.
Yeah, life ruiners. I'm hoping that maybe in 30, 40 years, we get the full-fledged documentary, like how they did there was a Freaknik documentary that dropped too long ago. And it was like, hey, there's been a lot of time passed now. Your mom might be in this video. Your aunt might be in this video, shaking some ass, and you imagine down at Freaknik. Maybe
generational lives ruined by these things.
Maybe in 30 years we get what happened at the Diddy party in a nice 90-minute documentary.
Well, your day's ultimately going to be much better than mine because I'm about to go spend 2 hours with Matt Dodson. So wish me luck on that.
Did you watch watch Mickey 17 yet?
No, I didn't. I didn't watch Mickey 17. I don't like to spend $25 on anti-Republican propaganda. Thank you, Tor. All right, that's all Ruffalo wanted to do. He's going to get it. Of course, why he took the fucking role.
Of course, that was his price.
Nobody. I mean, he's like, I've got to pump this Trump derangement syndrome full of steroids. Give me this role. I'll do it for free. All right, for Radio Gigantor, I'm Chad Dukes asking you, please always go long, real long.
Hey, what do you got?
Both types of sports.
Yeah, what's it do? Go long, real long. Nice toss.
Both types of sports.